Hello everyone, this is Alex, and today we're going to talk about orchestral counterpoint. Some of you have discovered my channel through my first video. One of my first videos was actually a counterpoint exercise. And it's no secret to all of us orchestrators that counterpoint has a huge role to play into orchestral writing. And sometimes we don't realize at what point we can take off the orchestral process through only thinking about counterpoint and expanding the line through harmony and orchestration in a contrapuntal way. So I'll show you what I mean, but I'm doing this video because I recently watched Harry Potter with my youngest son. He's getting old enough so we can watch Harry Potter. So I got back into John Williams' music for this, and it's insane. It's so beautifully written, and what's exciting about his music is that he has one melody, one theme, but the counterpoint that is done with all of the other instruments of the orchestra behind it. It's very, very interesting and something that I'll talk about today through this idea of orchestral counterpoint. Counterpoint doesn't necessarily have to be all equal melody like modal counterpoint usually taught us to do. It can be a little bit of a blend between harmonic thinking and accompanying melody, but also counter melodies that are equivalent. And John Williams is an expert in doing so, and bringing the right instruments at the right time, bringing them as a counter melody, and sometimes bringing them as more of an accompaniment. And it's such a great tool to have to bring your orchestra alive. This is what we're going to look into today. Before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Don't hesitate to leave a thumbs up, leave a comment down below. And if you're interested in joining the channel as a member, all the details are down below. But now let's get to our example about orchestral counterpoint. Alright now, so today we're starting off with this harp production. It's not super easy to play on the harp. I think there's a couple things that's not possible for the harp, especially regarding there's some modulations here and there, so I'm not sure the harp can play this, but it just sounds great on the harp. But yes, this would be more of a piano reduction normally, but just to hear it on the harp makes it a little bit more magical. So we're starting off with this. It's a simple harmony with a melody. So we got the melody, it's more or less in triplets. Dum 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 dum. And there's a little bit of faster rhythm here and there. It's a 4-bar kind of melody. And it's something that's not much about repetition. It's not such a classical form, but you see that the harmony is pretty classical. So let's have a listen first, and then we can dive into it. So quite simple melody. I wanted something rhythmically constant. So we always have this kind of triplet pattern that's there all the way. So this will leave me some opportunities to add in different lines throughout the different arrangement that I will make. And we can see that the harmony is pretty much just very standard. Is very much there to accompany this one melody. So how can we start from this, a simple accompanying melody, and turn it into something very contrapuntal for the whole orchestra? How can we add layers in there, since there's already pretty much everything that we need for music, for a song? So I'll show you this throughout this video, but first let's just see a little bit what's going on in the harmonies. So we got F minor at first, modulating to 5th degree of this B flat minor here. So moving still on the first beat, even though we imagine that when we arrive here, we stay constant and we have this kind of F pedal. So we could consider this as just a long F chord, so whatever tonality we're in. But then we start moving quite a bit. We have a second Neapolitan degree here of our F minor, and we move on into, whoa, that's a D flat major. So basically a B minor, a B major chord, and then we move into A flat major, back to our B flat minor, and moving into a cadence leading us to a C minor chord. So this is not so relevant to what we're gonna do here. You'll see that whatever modulations you have, whatever kind of music you have, you can add orchestral counterpoint. And even though the harmony is quite dense, it's quite changing here, you can create a lot of textures and interesting sounds like John Williams is doing while he only stays in one tonality for a whole theme. So this is what we're gonna dive in today. So first, for this exercise, I did a simple, let me just clean this up a little bit. I did a simple accompanied melody for the whole strings. I always like to start with the strings, you know me, and I did added a bit of stuff here. So let's have a listen first, and then we can discuss. So you hear that I'm starting to put in some little ideas here and there, especially like at specific moments in the melody. So there's not counterpoint everywhere, but still, to start thinking about orchestration, it's a mindset to help you think beyond the music itself. So this is what I'm doing here. At first, instead of just presenting the F chord harmony, I alternate between notes from the chords, creating this little thing here. So if we just listen to the second violins and viola. So in the first part, it's pretty clear that it's a harmonic movement, and it's just a compositional approach to the arrangement, because at first I wanted us to hear the melody. So we just focus on the melody for the first bar, and then we can start playing with it. We don't necessarily need to hear the rhythm. We recognize the melody on the second, third, and fourth bar, so we can start focus on different things. So that's my first approach to starting to expand harmony into adding counterpoint lines. So this is what I'm doing here. You can hear it quite a bit. Only for this, ti ta 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 ti. So this is a double broderie in French. You have the main note from the chord, but you have these two notes in the middle that jump around this note. So this just creates a little bit of movement and adding a little bit of dissonance and unpredictability to your harmony. But it's still harmony beyond that. We do have this little melody here, fa, mi, re, that's actually doubling this here, re, do, si. So it's just an harmonization here. It's not so much of, a counterpoint line. Actually, we could argue that the bass note is doing kind of a counterpoint to this upper melody right at the beginning. But this was already in my arrangement, so this is nothing added here yet. And then we have these arpeggios here, and this is just the plain chorus, or we're still in a harmonic thinking. But wait till you see this. Here, we do have something different. So I use the sextuplet as a different area or a different layer than what we have in my melody. So I use this idea of the sextuplet because here it's all in triplets, so it's a little bit slower. The sextuplet are attracting attention because it's a faster rhythm. We do have a couple sextuplets in here, this one, but mainly the focus here is in triplets. So when this starts to move, we really focus on that. And this is the first step to introducing some freedom into your harmony is that you have these passages where the line starts to get freer, starts to move in a maybe conjunct line. Here it's very conjunct, so it's not super characteristic movement because it's just basically scales going up and down, but still we're starting to add some freedom in here, something we might use a little bit later, so you'll see where I'm getting on with this afterwards. And then the ending is pretty interesting because this is where I do include some real counterpoint. And this counterpoint is interesting because it does ties a little bit more to the rhythm of my first upper line. So in a triplet here, da ti do do da da ti, just for the ending. So this second violin leaves the sextuplet figure, only leaving it to the violas. That's pretty much like playing around the G here. So again, nothing very characteristic, nothing very that stands out in terms of really this is an independent counterpoint line. It's not independent of the harmony that was there before. And that's something about counterpoint. It has to be independent. It has to feel independent. It has to feel like a new thing. But we're just putting off the groundwork for this. So before we get into the my other version, let's just see a little bit what I did with the bass. So the double bass is pretty much doing what the harp was doing at the beginning. It's just playing pizzicatos, so nothing crazy. We have the cello here who's doing the triplets, but in arpeggio way. So it's playing around the notes from the bass, but adding a little bit of information. So at first, I only add basic chords, but here adding in the triplets, introducing the notes from the chords in a different pace, we could say. But the thing is, with this bass note, it's very constant, sometimes joining the double bass. It's also arco, so this is played with the bow, and the double bass is played with the pizzicato. So just very light in the lowest foundation, and a little bit more present, and a bit more brushed sound for the cellos here. So I'm being careful with presenting the right notes from not disturbing too much the root notes from for my cello. So you see we do have a D here, but it's very secondary. If you present the D in the first chord here, you really hear the fifth, which is maybe not something you want to attract attention too much. I did it here, for instance. We have the F and the C, but I think they are so far apart, and we do present the C a couple of times before, so it's not like a big focus to me. So yes, I try to present pretty much the same notes than the double bass on the first beat every time, and then use these second and third beats to maybe add in some information about the chord. So just a strong foundation for what is mostly moving and starting to get a little bit more freedom in the second violins and in the violas, which contributes to support the melody for this. So it's already a pretty good like arrangement of this this first melody. Starting to think about freeing the lines, starting to think about it, just thinking about it will help you to get into counterpoint afterwards. So you'll see in my next version, which is my final version, is just we're gonna look at it a little bit more differently. It's pretty crazy, right? It's very moving. There's a lot of stuff that I added. It was a lot of work to do, this one particularly. Even though I don't have the full orchestra, I just use the trumpets, the horns, Woodwinds by 2, so it's not like a big orchestra, no percussions. I did bring back the harp. It's doing something a little bit different. But yes, see my strings, they're doing something completely different. And who's doing the melody with all this? So we have the clarinet, actually. That's here. It's a good register for the clarinet. That's all that I wanted. You see that it's a perfectly medium register. It's played by two clarinets. So for me, since the music was to be soft, I didn't write pretty much any dynamic, but it's supposed to be played piano. The fact that it was soft was easy to think, okay, just two clarinets for this melody is okay. Maybe as we add in more instruments afterwards, I did do a little bit of doublings here and there, but I wanted to free up all of the other instruments so that it could start thinking about added counterpoint in middle lines. So before we hear all of this, I'm gonna go through different layers. So let's just focus on the strings first. So I'm gonna keep the clarinet part as well, so you can still see the melody. But mostly this the strings parts is very much focusing on keeping this harmony, keeping this harmonic sound very much anchored. But we do add in some lines here and there. So we have, of course, the clarinet. That's the main melody, the most distinct melody. But I like to do, in this case, a lot of harmonic work. And harmonic work doesn't mean you're only playing with the notes from the chords. Like we did here, we do use passage notes, so notes that are between the different notes from the chords. So this is what I'm doing a little bit here. Let's hear this last version, only the clarinet with the strings. So quite different, and in my opinion, much more airy. This is what I'm looking for usually when I'm doing this kind of thing, is to take off the heaviness of just an accompanying melody. And the orchestra is very good for that. The orchestra there's so many instruments, so you generally want to take off some things. You can have this huge sound, these huge orchestral sounds, but if you have always too much, it's gonna feel like a heavy orchestration. So the first thing that I did, actually, I think was my bass line. So I needed to think about this. How can my bass line can be contrapuntal and can complement well what's going on in the clarinet? So the first thing that I added was this pa-pa-pum, pum-pa-pa-pum, pum-pum-pum-pum-pum. So this little quick sextuplet, like a group of triplets, 16-note triplets at the beginning in pizzicatos, played by all of these group of lower instruments from the viola to the double bass, is something new, and it's characteristic of counterpoint thinking because you're trying to fill some gaps. So if there's a gap here in the rhythm, there's just one note, one long note that's playing, having this focus on ta-ta-tum. And then back here on this long note, the D flat, we have ta-ta-tum again. So it's a good place to attract the attention of the listener because there's nothing in the rhythm. And to combine, like if there's something fast being played on one, then play something slow on the other one. And in the opposite, if there's something slow, like here, it's been played on the clarinets, then in the lower part, play something quick. But still, we're following pretty much the bass line that we had before, sometimes back on our quarter notes. But here we have a new line that's pretty interesting, that's expanding the register pretty much. It's playing this high A flat and playing with the chord of the clarinet here. So it's joining this note here. But still, it's at the ending of this phrase here, this second bar. We have a break here, so perfect time to bring in a counter melody. But then it dies off, so to leave the place again for this melody that starts to move back again, and going back to this pa-pa-pum to remind us of the beginning here. We did that here to end just with a very clear cadence. So a very, like everybody's coming back together for the last chord. So that's interesting as well. Let's just listen to this lower part of the strings now. So quite a strong anchor to this. And if we go back to the rest of the violins, this little part here, this little arpeggio part, again, not very much different from what we did before with the second violin. We do add some notes. So this is a B natural. So I like to see this as a note that is tied to the C. So it's a kind of a broken arpeggio in a way. And we have the same here, and then the same here, the B natural here. But we do go hit that note here. So the C, the A flat, and the B are part of the chord. But not these other notes. So we're just adding some notes here and there. And also the fact that this is 30 seconds note, 30-second notes, I think, yeah, if I'm doing math correctly. Yes, so a new rhythm again. So this third layer of rhythm that's faster, it's bringing in a lot of freedom and expressiveness and something kind of whimsical and magical to our sound. It's something we're bringing all the way through the end. We do go back into our sextuplet here, and this is where actually we go double this melody on the clarinet. On this long note here we end, and then back to our sextuplet, which is actually, I think, a copy of what we had here. Yeah, this is pretty much the same, and I think I'm using this as well for my flutes and oboes for the until the end here. So this is very much some of the notes that we add from our second version. So to show you that, although I wasn't already thinking about counterpoint at the second part, I was still thinking about how can I orchestrate this and make it more interesting. And here I am. I have these little lines, these little parts that are basically just scales going up and down, moving around the main notes, and this is adding a lot of texture and dynamic to my sound. So I'm using them in my final version. But yes, otherwise these broken arpeggio are super effective, and it's basically just the chords that are adding some of the broken, like some of the neighboring notes of the chords to create some texture. And this is not so much interfering with this, although it's playing a little bit around these notes, but see, only here the G on the clarinet and on the second violin are touching, but they're not disturbing each other very much. So it's not a complete contrapuntal, a real traditional counterpoint free line, but it's still adding a lot of different texture to your orchestral sound, different like movement to your orchestral sound, and all starting off with the harmony, all starting off with playing around the melody and trying to find places where there's rhythms that could fit in. Basically, the rhythms are super important in counterpoint, and we don't talk so much about them. We talk mainly about pitch and melodies and all that, but this is a great way to think about counterpoint also. And now let's see my woodwinds. Let's just focus on the woodwinds for this final excerpt now. So this line here, da 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 da, palm. So this is actually the first thing that I did, I think, before doing that lowest line going up here, da 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 da. It's actually similar to what I did with the strings here. So starting off on the third beat, a group of triplets going up, and same thing from what I said earlier. When the melody here have a break, then this upper line goes up. So it's a great moment to add in some stuff rhythmically. And the fact that it's another group of instruments, another kind of orchestration, like this is two clarinets doubling each other's. And these are just two oboe and two flutes in octaves in harmonies of thirds and sixths. So it does attract our attention, and especially it's also in the higher register, which we can start to think about using when we're stuck in a certain register for clarinets. But still, it appears and it disappears, and then the focus is brought back onto the clarinets afterwards. Then we have our bassoon that's actually doubling this melody for the cello. Bassoons are great to double cellos. They're pretty much the same register. They're the equivalent of the cello for the woodwind section. So don't hesitate to double important melodies like this. Like this is a perfect example of a counter melody, and we needed to highlight it. So the bassoon is playing all the way here, taking a little break, and then doing the final cadence with everybody else here. But like I said earlier, this whole part is basically notes that were there in my second version. So I used the woodwinds to do what I built, or what I prepared in my second version. It's not the whole thing, not since the beginning, but just for the end part here, I recycled this. So don't hesitate to sometimes go in a certain way and realize, oh, maybe I won't use like what I did in my second version for the whole beginning, but maybe for the whole ending. And this is exactly what I did here. It's just a way to give you options, and sometimes even though you work hard to do a certain orchestration, you might not need to use it for the whole way. And it might hurt your feelings to drop a part, but it won't hurt your orchestration generally. It's best to have something a little bit more diverse in general, I would say, and to have the different group of instruments playing different roles. So talking about the harp here, the harp is doubling my violins at the beginning, doing some notes from the chords, and then doing the bass line, some of the notes from the chords, doing a little arpeggio here that's quite cute. It's actually doing it alone, so you'll hear in the final version, you can really hear it. And then going back to doubling this part for the violins, some notes from the melody here, some little chords here and there, and then the ending part doubling again the cascade broken arpeggios from my violins. So mostly a doubling part here for the harp, so nothing crazy. And then last but not least, my trumpets and horns are adding some warmth to my sound. So this is another layer. We wouldn't say like a real counterpoint line. Maybe here we do have this part here that stands out. And this is in response to this descending line, so this one's peaking up. But otherwise, the trumpet is here jumbling the bassoon, which is kind of odd, but it's happening. And then the trumpets goes into playing the last chords with everybody. But otherwise, the horns here are adding in a new counterpoint layer, and it's basically an arpeggio, but again, the rhythm is very important here. You present a new rhythm that nobody's playing, and in a certain pitch where it's pretty free or it's not used by somebody else. So now, without further ado, let's listen to this full final version. So you see that the line between counterpoint, individual lines, harmony is very much blurred when you go with the orchestra. And it all depends into how much you want to keep your original first musical line, or if you want to bring in some different layers and bring your music somewhere else. I personally love this kind of a journey. It allows you to see all the different possibilities. And this is a great way to explore what's possible with your orchestra. And I strongly encourage you to try these on your own. Now, thank you for listening, and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye-bye.